everybody. Steve Politi from NJ Advanced Media for the yet-to-be-named, renamed Rutgers podcast. I'm joined, as always, by Keith Sargent, James Cratch. Fellas, it feels like I've got deja vu. We're doing this all over again today. We had technical issues. We let Cratch be the producer one time. We record this, quite simply, the best podcast we've ever recorded, and it gets screwed up. Sarge, I don't know where to start. Should we fire him? Should we still let him in?
All I know is I've been a producer for a year and a half, 2 years, and never had that issue. But you know what? The kid's a rookie. We'll give him a pass on it.
Right. And the fact that the fan base, of course, is incredibly in love with him makes it impossible for him.
That's the thing. Like, if we rip him, you know, it's just going to be bad for you and I.
It was great. It was a great podcast. I listened to it driving. It was excellent. We should
put it like, remember in the old days when you had a bootleg concert, you put it on like a tape and then you'd sell it like for the true fans of this podcast, that should be available someplace for sale.
All like four of them or no?
All four of them. If you want this, we'll email it to you. But for now, you're going to have to get our second best effort of the day. But let's talk about the big news of the day, because obviously this can only be described as a bullet dodged. Artur Sitkowski not only made it out alive from Columbus, but is healthy enough that he's going to practice. And Chris Ash seemed to indicate that he's going to play on Saturday, which, surprised me. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but it certainly surprised me.
Yeah, I'll start. I wasn't terribly surprised because I kind of got the inkling over Saturday night into Sunday and into Monday that nothing horrible had popped up with Art. I mean, they left Saturday with Art saying he was going to be fine, and I guess that all kind of panned out. But at the same time, I mean, I think Rutgers has to sit down and really thank its lucky stars, because this whole thing could have been completely blown up 6 quarters in. That was a hellacious hit he took from Nick Bosa. I think maybe the hardest hit I've ever seen in person. And it was not just that hit. I mean, there were several hits. He got hit a lot on Saturday, which I'm sure we'll discuss later. So they just have to count, look, we'll see what he does. Chris Ash kind of indicated he doesn't know how much he's going to throw the football this week. And I still think that odds are better than not that you might see an increased role for Gio or Jonathan Lewis on Saturday, just given the opponent and given Art's situation. They probably don't want to go all in, necessarily if he doesn't feel great during the week. But look, they're very, very fortunate, because that could have been an absolute disaster against Ohio State.
Sarge, would you start him this week? I mean, what do you think?
Well, if he's ready to go, I would. He's the best quarterback they have. And that's just based on, that's no knock on Gio, but that's just based on we know what Gio is. I mean, after playing 12 games the last 2 years, and Art, by all accounts, beat him out in training camp. So if he's ready to go, I would. But I think James is right. I mean, he's a tough kid, and I know people who are close to him who swear that he's going to be ready to go. My understanding is that, it's a ribs injury and it's a shoulder injury, and there's nothing structural as far as any damage. So maybe he can go, but I don't know. I mean, he's a franchise quarterback, and if there's any doubt about this risking further harm, I think I would play Gio.
Well, let's revisit the play. And I know this was a hot topic. If you haven't read what I wrote about it, I thought it was just criminally insane to drop him back to pass in the situation where he got hurt. It was third down, end of the first half. They were running the ball out. They were down 35-0. They were on their own 35-yard line. It just seemed like the scenario, especially when you know that you can't block Nick Bosa, and you knew from the moments of the game you weren't going to be able to block him. To drop back, to throw that pass, I think they know now it was a mistake. Certainly we asked both Chris Ash and John McNulty about it, and this is more than just a hindsight thing, though. I think a lot of people, the moment we saw him dropping back, were like, oh my gosh. Sarge, you're not so sure, though. We were talking about a little bit. You thought maybe the situation was a little different.
Yeah, I mean, just a little context here, okay? And James had a great point in his Rutgers review, which Rutgers fans, you have to check this out, because it's as good of anything that we do on NJ.com. Monday, his film review is just phenomenal. But
do we really need to advertise the film review again? I mean, enough with the love about the film review.
Well, James I don't know if you know this, but James actually gets paid by every, positive comment, on NJ.com, and that's all, that's all there is. So I'm just trying to help the guy.
Well,
So
he's no wonder he's living well.
that's why he drove to Rutgers in the Maserati today.
That's true. Yep.
But for some context, I mean, it wasn't like it was a deep pass. It was, a middle screen, which essentially, my feeling is, and I get the time that you can run the ball out, get to halftime. I get that. That play that you ran could have happened on the first play of the third quarter, could have happened in the middle of the second quarter. Sometimes it boils down to, and I'm not ripping the kid, but because the kid actually did own it, said that he should have made the block. But Tariq Cole is a 3-year starter who's been billed as an all Big Ten caliber offensive lineman. He didn't get out of his stance. He didn't make the block. I get it. Nick Bosa is, one of the best players in the country, one of the best defensive players in the country. I get it. Not the easiest, but it wasn't like they were, on my first take, after the game, I'm thinking that, they called for like a deep pass or whatever. It was a play over the middle, a quick pass.
Well, the quick pass took forever, though. I've seen in this wonderful film review. You watched the little clip.
Did it really take forever?
He takes the shotgun snap and he drops back 4 steps, and
Nick
even then
Bosa basically had a free shot at the blind side. I mean,
yes,
I don't know.
I understand.
I could blame Sitkowski on sometimes for maybe holding the ball. I don't think he took it forever. And the other thing is, okay, and I'll say a couple more things about it. Two, I give Ash, actually I give him a little bit of credit, and, this might be a little inside baseball, but, after the game, I'm looking at the notifications on my Twitter, I'm looking at emails, people are like, go for blood. You gotta, no question is hard enough for Chris Ash. The fan base was irate about it, right? So I asked the first 2 questions in the post game. First question was, is Art okay? And he said, that Art said that he thought that he was fine, but he was going to have to be evaluated. And then I asked him, about regretting the call. And I've dealt with coaches, at every level, particularly at Rutgers. Greg Schiano would not have admitted a mistake there. Neither would have Kyle Flood. I'm just telling you for a fact, they would not have. Chris Ash owned it, said, and he wished he would have called timeout. He owned it today. I know it was just a small thing, but, give Ash credit. He wasn't, pig-headed in saying, that was the right call or whatever. He owned it, said in hindsight he wouldn't do it again. We could talk about the call forever. Again, I do think that it comes down to execution, and I do think that there is a point that sometimes you just have to, you have to play football.
All right, Kratz, your thoughts?
Well, the one thing I will say is, and I wish I had asked John McNulty this during the press conference, is, was it designed for a step drop, or was Art, having been crushed for 2 quarters of football, maybe taking like little choppy steps, kind of feeling a little, feeling jittery in the pocket, which I think would be understandable if given a freshman quarterback who had already been hit very hard by Ohio State's pass rush. So that's what I want to know. I highly doubt if they called a quick pass as a shotgun that involves a long drop after that, doesn't make much sense. But if it was just one of those things where he dropped more than he was because he was feeling such a heat, that's a little different. I don't think they should have thrown the ball there, but I understand that they thought it was the same thing as a run. I would just say, why not do that on first down and run on second and third?
I've seen that.
And John McNulty was great today. John McNulty was great today talking about, what happened. He owned it as well. And he made a couple of points I thought were really important. Number one, that the kid's attitude was just great coming in on Sunday. He's already passed it. He wanted to finish the game, which of course is craziness, but they wanted to finish the game. He was disappointed he couldn't. And then the other point he made and I think this is the bigger concern going forward, they've got to keep him clean. That's what John McNulty said. We've got to keep Art clean. Are you worried now? This is 2 games. Texas State had a good pass rush. You can dismiss. Ohio State's going to be one of the best defenses in the country. We know all about that. But when you're watching this now, are they going to be able to block anybody? Can they block Kansas?
Yeah, I was just going to finish the point. I've actually seen that play work where the running back gets, behind, in front of the linebacker, and you actually get 30 cheap yards out of it and maybe kick a field goal. But To answer your question, Steve, I think the Texas State game, it did give you some concern. They did get a couple clean shots on them. I think that, James hit the nail on the head that this wasn't just that hit. I mean, there were a lot of other hits that it was a cumulative. That's the reason why, Art is feeling a little sore on Sunday and even Monday, and there's still some questions about it. So is there concern long term? Sure. I mean, I think, anytime, I think, James would probably know the number off the top of his head based on his thorough film review. I think he has probably been hit at least 8 or 9 times. I mean, I think that, James, I mean, do you know, how many times has Art been hit so far in 10 quarters?
I was actually thinking 6 quarters, I didn't really count against Texas State. I don't think this is a guess, Dimit. I don't have the exact number in my hand. It's probably 10 to 12. I think it was probably 6 or 7 against Ohio State. The one thing I'll say is that it happened once against Texas State and once against Ohio State. He got hit kind of low, or there was, Nick Bosa, someone was kind of down at his legs. Yep. That's also a major issue in my opinion, because, he's even more vulnerable if some guy gets knocked into his knee down there, after throwing the ball. Look, I think, and we talked about this, I can reference our old podcast that never got taped. They did adjust on the offensive line against Texas State. They didn't really know what defense they were going to run coming into the game as his new defensive coordinator without much of a FBS, resume to his name. They gave up some pressure early. They kind of settled down, made some adjustments in game. They were better. There's nothing you can do to adjust to Ohio State in the game. Now, I think the question is, okay, they go to Kansas. Kansas is a team that their strength is defense. Their defense has been playing well the first 2 weeks, but they're better than Texas State. They're obviously not as good as Ohio State. I think the question is, if they handle those guys relatively well, if they can adjust to those guys, then we say, okay, maybe this offensive line is okay. If they struggle mightily against Kansas, then Rutgers is a major problem on its hands.
All right. You ready for some true or false?
I'm ready.
Are we ready? Are you ready? You sure?
I've been waiting since, for weeks on end for this true and false.
True or false? The talent gap has closed with Ohio State.
False.
False. Nah, you got to
come up with better ones than that one. Come on.
That is a bad omen, I think. True or false? The receivers are better than they've shown and will show improvement against Kansas.
False.
Wow.
False. I think that they are what they are.
Oh boy, that's a bad news too. True or false? If you're an NFL GM, you take Nick Bosa number 1 overall.
True.
Probably take a quarterback, depending on my need.
Not a running back?
No. I would not take a running back.
That's my one jam, folks.
Will Greer?
God's humor. I love it. All right. True or false? The whole directional punting thing is working like a charm.
True.
Can't wait. Can't wait till we fight this one out.
I mean, Cratch is just trying to buddy up with the coaching staff. I'm going to say false.
Oh, I think you changed your answer from the first time.
Low blow.
Low blow. All right. True or false? Kansas should be a 3-point favorite this weekend.
True.
Okay.
True.
I thought that was a pick 'em at best, but true or false? Rutgers is a field hockey school.
True. More to come in the days ahead.
Field hockey school.
The women's soccer program would argue with it, but I'll say true.
Field hockey fever. True or false? The Big Ten is not going to get a team in the playoffs.
False.
False. They might get 2.
You're both buying it. You 2? Well,
Wisconsin?
True or I get to play in the championship game. True or false? If Rutgers loses to Kansas, Chris Ash is going to feel the white hot heat from this fan base.
True.
True. And finally, true or
the fan base.
Yeah. Finally, true or false? Driving to Columbus, Ohio, when the company will pay for a flight, is completely insane. True or false, Cratch?
True.
I'm going to say false. I think that's a great idea. I think
this is an inside joke, folks. But Sarge drove to Columbus. He drove And again, we work for a company. I know, like, it's not, we have budget issues like most media companies these days, but we do pay for flights and hotels. But Sarge drove to Columbus, Ohio, the 7.5 hours on the way back in a hailstorm for what I can see is just no feasible reason.
My rule of thumb is anything under 8 hours, I try to drive. I like driving. I think the airports, I can't stand. I get agitated when I go to the airports and have to wait. And I've had too many flights get canceled. And, if I could just drive and listen to the radio and, you hit it down the head. Because driving home, I had, while I was driving in like a monsoon, I was regretting it for sure.
So Lawrence, Kansas, I think right now, but is actually 18 hours and 51 minutes away. So I guess you're not going to this game. It'll be Cratch and I. Well, let's talk about this game.
I'm actually leaving right now.
Yeah. Love it. We've talked about it, and I totally agree with the True here that this is, has to be Chris Ash's most important game since he's gotten to Piscataway. And that's this, this season rests on them winning this game. And if they lose this game, I think a lot of people who have been on the bandwagon are going to jump off because it's going to be hard for Rutgers to show improvement in year 3 if you're not beating Kansas, which is by virtually any measure the worst Power 5 school in the country.
Well, I thought it was refreshing when Chris Ash, and he dismissed the question a little bit, but then he did say that one of their goals is to win their non-conference games, which we've documented or is the easiest non-conference schedule they've had. And in order to go to a bowl game, they're going to have to win all their non-conference games. So this is one of them. I think that in so many ways that the fan base will I just could see from my Twitter, I could see from the comment section, whenever I do check the message boards, you can just sense it that there's going to be a revolt and people questioning, rightly or wrongly, because James probably has an opinion on this too. He's not going to be on the hot seat, folks. Okay. Because he has an AD, he has, board of governors, he has boosters. They all still support him. And it's only year 3. He's early in year 3 and he has a 5-year contract. You got the
$10 million left after.
His seat is an iceberg. There's nothing hot about it.
In the definition of being on the hot seat, he's so far from it. But as far from the perspective of the fans' perspective, which has an impact, and we talked about it last week, from a ticket sales, the season ticket numbers are, they are what they are, 22,000. And, in order to have a walk up or have any buzz going forward, they need to win this game.
I think that while he I get the feeling that they are definitely pushing that message to players because after the coaches' press conferences today, we had a couple of players come in and talk to us, and one of the players said this straight out, they're a Power 5, and like when a player says that, that Ash and his staff are telling these guys, like, look, I understand Kansas is 4-34 in the last 4 years, but they play like they're in the Big 12, they're a Power 5 school, like they have a 4-star freshman running back. They have recruits. So I think that as much as Rutgers fans don't want to think about it, this Kansas team does have some ability, and they're kind of on even footing. At least they're going to look at it as that they're even footing with Rutgers. This is a chance for Kansas to win a game at home, which is something, first off, they don't really win games at all, but they just beat Central Michigan. They're flying high. Now they got a chance to have it's like that scene in Major League, or Major League 2, where you win one game, then you win a second game. That's called a winning streak. They haven't experienced that in so long here. Kansas, they've had this game circled for months. They think they're going to beat Rutgers. They probably think they're better than Rutgers. So
absolutely, this is their one chance. I mean, Kansas is looking at this too, the same way that Rutgers is looking at it. That their season can't go anywhere without winning this game.
I mean, I agree. It's the most important game because if Rutgers wins this game, they have a chance to potentially go to a bowl. If Kansas loses this game, they're probably not going to win another game the rest of the year because they're at Baylor a week after that. That's a competitive game. And then it's 8 straight weeks of just losing 70-10 in the Big 12. Look, so I think this is a game that Ash has to win, and it's a game Rutgers has to win.
If there are 3 schmoes in Lawrence, Kansas doing a podcast, first off, they're probably talking about basketball, not football, because
exactly.
But if they are talking about this game, they're saying pretty much the same thing that we're saying, that this is this is a game that they've had circled on the calendar, and this is a must win, and all the same things. So that's why you probably are right. I mean, it's probably a pick 'em could go either way. Kansas is at home, so maybe you give them a couple points, but for sure, this is, it's just a huge game.
All right. Mean tweets. I had a good one. We had a couple of mean comments, mean tweets. People are just mean. So I was at the Giants game, and I tweeted after the Giants interception, Eli Manning's pick six, the ball got deflected. I tweeted like, hey, at least Eli Manning has a touchdown for somebody. And then someone, Greg, on Twitter, replied to me, really? Today was Manning's fault? You should be forced to cover Rutgers forever. Which
kind of sounds like my life, by the way. This is like year 20 or 25 or 30. I mean, I feel like
you have been forced. I don't know if you're forced.
I think someone made that wish.
Rutgers
I think someone made that curse to me 20 years ago. I think I'm living it right now.
And so the next mean, this is not a mean tweet, it's a mean comment. So Cratch, in between the brilliant Pulitzer level film review that the fans Best American Sports Writing Volume 15, Gary Smith, Rick Riley level, great Wright Thompson. I'm trying to think of some other. Between doing that, apparently he did a story that the fans did not like. He wrote 14 reasons why Kansas is a trap game or something.
It was just kind of educating the fans on what to expect from the Jayhawks.
All right. Okay. Well, some reader on that, and the comment was, this article is not up to the usual standards for you. This is more like a Sarge article, that is just,
I give that guy credit, whoever he is. I mean, I'm sure he didn't put his name to it, but I give him credit because anytime you can zing not just one, but two NJ.com writers in one comment, I mean, I give them all the credit in the world.
I'm a little disappointed I was left out of that somehow. I love it, though. That was just a brilliant zinger. All right, do we piss off any fan bases this week? I don't think so. Ohio State fans, you guys were there. And, usually when Dunleavy went on the road, we'd at least get some story of someone getting insulted in some way. But it seemed like you guys just go to the game like professionals and came home.
The press box was I mean, we've criticized. I think we spent way too much time in years past talking about the food, so I don't want to make this like a weekly thing. But it was the worst offering, and Ohio State gets the amount of money that comes into Ohio State. They had Sloppy Joe, and that and honestly, I don't think I've had Sloppy Joe since like my junior year of high school, and was not a fan of Sloppy Joe. But the insulting part was at this point, everyone knows that I like to get to a game early, okay? Whereas opposed, to Politi and Dunleavy in the past, they would get to the game, a 12 o'clock game, they would get there at like 11:55 and then complain about what are we going to do with these 5 minutes? Thanks a lot, Sarge. I like to get to a game early. We got there at 12:15. That's the reason why Cratch is the best partner I've ever had.
12:15.
12:15 for a 3:30 start. We get to set up. We get to get a feel for everything, and be able to collect our thoughts and talk like a team. And but you're hungry, right? So and there's the food smelled good. It was penny pasta with meatballs and a little Caesar salad. Looked great, right? So we walk up. We each grab a plate, a fork, a napkin, and about to put a meatball onto my plate. The security guy comes up and says, "Excuse me, sir, this is for the TV crew." So we were denied, our lunch.
You couldn't even have a meatball. They wouldn't even give you a meatball.
Wouldn't even get, and then little did we know that an hour and a half later, we would get Sloppy Joe.
I just have two things to say. One, it was pouring, so in a normal situation, I would have told Sarge, since we were there so early, all right, let's find a way to get to the concourse. Let's, just get food that way. But it was, it was pouring and it was complicated. Two, I never thought I would get to a press box that made me yearn for the Washington Redskins press box spread. This is it. But again, I just want to throw in we understand free food, not a big deal. Don't come at us.
No, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Huge.
Yeah.
We understand our part in the world. No big J journalism stuff here.
All right. The podcast name, as you people might have known, we're voting on a new podcast name because our podcast name is terrible. And in this market now where there are 43 different Rutgers podcasts, it's hard to find a name of your own. But before I do this, for some unknown reason, I've been playing a TV theme song for Sarge to guess. And we did one for the first try we taped this. He got it right. So I'm going to give him a harder one. But I will give you this clue, Sarge, all right? It is again, a TV theme show, a song from a show that involves someone in the news. Are you ready?
I'm ready. No idea.
This is the worst.
I think I know.
This is the worst theme song of all time.
Is that Evening Shade?
It is Evening Shade. Yes. Cratch comes in with the save.
Did you
well done?
That?
Did you know it, or did you?
No. I legitimately. I mean, I was sitting there. I heard it. I'm thinking to myself, "Who's in the news?" Just so that the listeners at home know.
He has Shazam on his phone.
Played the I Dream of Jeannie theme song when we taped this earlier in the day because Bill Daly, Major Healy, or as I said, he should be remembered as Howard Borden for the Bob Newhart show.
Terrible loss.
Greatest character actor performance, roles in TV history. Then we played the Bob Newhart theme song. But then I thought to myself, okay, who besides Bill Daly, just in the news, passed away? Burt Reynolds. Obviously, Smokey, and I knew it wasn't the Smokey and the Bandit theme song. So you're either going to go there, Longest Yard theme, or Evening Shade. So that's why I said Evening Shade.
Tremendous.
I couldn't do Smokey and the Bandit because it's not a TV show, but you would have got this right away.
Exactly. That's what I meant. TV. I knew it was TV. I knew he was on Evening Shade. Go with it.
All right. So what is the names that we could? This week we had three names. Sarge's name was by far most popular. What were they again?
Birthplace Banter, which won over 64%.
Right.
What the Hell, which was mine, got 32%. Steve, Billy Leggett's Boys. I still think it'd be a great bar name in New Brunswick.
Yeah.
It got 4% of the vote.
That's where I'm at.
I like Birthplace Banter. I'm okay with that. I think it's good alliteration. I understand that there's an all-time legendary Rutgers-related alliteration nickname that's out there. Maybe we should get the legal team on it. I can't say it.
I think I can say it because I came up with it years ago. Scarlet Scuttlebutt? Is that what you're talking about?
You came up with the Scarlet Scuttlebutt?
Really? Yeah,
I did.
I didn't know if we had
that was on me.
standards and practices, but
Yeah, you should have trademarked that. All right.
I wish I would have done that. Birthplace Banner is I think it's a winner right there.
I don't know. It's just some kind of corny. Sarge, Crash, you actually had a reader suggested a few?
Yes.
Is that
Paul sent us Night Ledger. Playing off the fact that the Star Ledger, the newspaper that our stuff shows up in from time to time, and then Carol's sent us a lot of names. I'll just run through them very quickly. Night Moves, Night Bites, Upstream Audible, Scarlet Audible, Upstream Confidential, Raritan Confidential, which sounds like a news magazine, the Scarlet Slant, which is good but too close to our friends over at the Spotlight. That would be kind of gimmick infringement. The Huddle, Upstream Huddle, and Birthplace Huddle. Look, I am at the point now where I'll say Night Ledger. I think that has some
Night Ledger, huh?
Night Ledger. I mean, it has a ties to what we do.
Little Night Moves right here going on now. Can you hear it?
I do. Can Bob Seger join us?
Maybe we can have Bob Seger as a guest. That might spruce us up.
Bob Seger films the theme song. Okay, I'm going to go Night Ledger. I like that.
Look, okay.
I think Birthplace Banter or Pod Scataway, I'm okay with either name.
Those are our two best so far.
I'm going to go with the RU Review. And as kind of an homage to the film review, which is, clearly Pulitzer worthy. So, I've seen the numbers on that, and anytime you could put review in anything on NJ.com, I think, you have a winner. So
it is our brand now. Clearly that's RU Review. All right. I like that. I'm going to do I don't usually like the corny ones, but I think a reader suggested to me Night Train. I kind of like Night Train. That's kind of like a, folk kind of soul-y thing. Get some soul in there. Play some, play some Motown.
Wasn't there like an NFL running back with the nickname Night Train?
Dick Night Train Lane.
Night Train Lane.
Maybe we could have him on. Maybe we could have Bob Seger on one week.
And Dick Night Train. Okay, that's good.
I don't know if Night Train's still with us, guys.
Final thoughts? What do you guys got? We should pick this game because I think this is the important game. I want to know where you guys stand in this game. Is it going to be a victory for Chris Ash?
I'm going to go first, and I'm going to disappoint our 3 or 4 listeners. I'm not going to make my pick. I think I'm going to reserve judgment until later in the week. I'd like to see a little bit of whether or not Sitkowski's going to play. I'd like to see, get more of a feel. I will say this, though, and this is coming from someone who picked 6-6 bowl team. I've seen enough of this team right now. I don't think this is a bowl team. So at some point, I do feel like I might back off that. This could be the week. I don't
off the bandwagon. I don't know how you saw a bowl team to begin with, but okay, you're off the bandwagon now. That's fair. I mean, all right, okay. So you're not going to give us a pick, though. Is what you're saying.
Not going to. I'm going to disappoint our 3 listeners and reserve it until later in the week.
Cratch.
I think Rutgers wins. I think I picked them to lose after spring ball. People got upset. I picked them to win. In our final season predictions, I think it's a very close game. I think the line was Kansas 3-point favorite. I think it's moved down to 2.5. I think it kind of nosedived to 2.5. Jay Poole, one of our loyal Twitter followers, told me basically right around the time Art, that Ash said that Art was probably going to be able to play on Saturday. I think it's a tight game. I think it's going to be a weird game. I mean, it's going to be 11 a.m. Central kickoff, empty stadium, Big 12 officials. I think something odd is going to happen. But I think at the end of the day, I think Kansas's offense is kind of limited outside of their talented freshman tailback, Puka Williams. And I think their defense has been kind of opportunistic, but they've been living off of turnovers the first 2 weeks of the season. And as long as Rutgers can protect the football, which I know, with Art in there, it's kind of a concern, obviously, because he's shown a proclivity to throw interceptions. I just think they're better up front and that they'll be able to protect Art and or Gio, because I do think you'll probably see Gio and Jonathan Lewis play at some point in this game. I think it'll be a tight game. I think Rutgers, they win by 3 to 7 points and they come home to Buffalo, which I think is really the next big game of Chris Ash's tenure, because that Buffalo team is a lot better than I think I did tongue-tied there. I think that Buffalo team might be the best team in the MAC. They're better than Eastern Michigan was a year ago when they came to Rutgers. I think it's going to be a really tough game for them. And if they can get those and get to 3-1, maybe we can start talking about a bowl.
Yeah, I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win relatively easily, easily by, the standards of this program right now. But I can see a 28-17, 28-14 victory. They're just more talented. And you gotta figure that, when you go against a team that's on your level and you've got guys like Blackshear, you've got playmakers, you're going to be better defensively. I think the defensive front, obviously wasn't a great performance against Ohio State, and they were exploited in the passing game, but they were pretty good against the run. So I think they can take something encouraging out of that. And I just got a feeling that, the talent is just higher. I mean, Kansas has just been abysmal. They're like 4-34 on the current head coach. I mean, it's just, I can't imagine that this would be a bad outcome, but I've been wrong before. All right, guys, anything else?
No, I was just going to say, I'm glad that Cratch acknowledged that he totally hedged the bet, because I remember, a spring prediction where he said Kansas would win, then he changed it. So I'm glad that he.
I'm picking Rutgers to win. If Rutgers loses, I cannot take credit for that.
At least he's picking something, unlike you. I've got to wait to see.
That's a fair point.
People came all the way 33 minutes into the podcast, so Sarge isn't going to give us a pick. Okay.
Well, I was going to say, and if you can hear this, folks, I'm happy, because that means this worked the second time
around. Exactly. If it doesn't work this time, I'm going to drive to New Brunswick and throw your.
If it doesn't work, we'll just have our loyal listeners. We'll call them and do the.
We'll do Dave White's suggestion, which is exactly. They could just call. We can just
put on like a 3-way. Put on a 3-way. Cell phone.
All right, guys. What you got?
Oh, real quick. Ryan Williams had the funny tweet about podcasters talking to podcasters like it was Super Bowl Monday and Radio Row. I just want to. I didn't credit him last week. I need to credit him now.
Beautiful. All right, gents. Thanks for listening, everybody. Steve Politi, James Cratch, Keith Sargent signing off. We'll be back next week to summarize the Kansas Jayhawks game. Thanks for listening.